We all know Frodo, Gandalf, Aragorn, but what about Fatty Bolger, or Prince Imrahil, or the mysterious Tom Bombadil and his wife Goldberry? These characters played major roles in the Lord of the Rings books, and yet they were completely missing from Peter Jackson's films. In this episode of You Shall Not Scroll, we're diving into 5 amazing characters who were cut from the films, what made them special, and why they were left behind in the adaptation process. And stick around, at the end we'll tease part 2 with even more forgotten legends of Middle-earth. Let's get into it. First up, Tom Bombadil, possibly the most mysterious character in all of Tolkien's legendarium. Old Tom Bombadil was a merry fellow. Bright blue his jacket was, and his boots were yellow. Green were his girdle, and his breeches all of leather. He wore in his tall hat a swan wing feather. Tom Bombadil clearly holds immense power over the natural world. His songs are a kind of magic, and within the bounds of his domain, he is master. Yet despite this extraordinary authority, he shows no desire to wield it beyond his borders. In fact, he approaches the very concept of power with a kind of innocent detachment, almost childlike in its purity. He is referred to as the eldest and fatherless, and there are strong hints that he walked the world long before even the Valar set foot in Arda. These qualities have sparked countless theories. Some suggest that Tom may be a manifestation of Eru Ilúvatar himself, or perhaps one of the Valar in disguise. But since Tom was created by Tolkien before the Lord of the Rings, he acts as an enigma, and every good fairy story should have an enigma. But why not just turn to Tolkien's own words and his letters to see what we can truly uncover about this mysterious figure? Tom Bombadil is not an important person to the narrative. I suppose he has some importance as a comment. The story is cast in terms of a good side and a bad side, beauty against ruthless ugliness, tyranny against kingship, moderated freedom with consent against compulsion that has long lost any object save mere power, and so on. But both sides, in some degree, conservative or destructive, want a measure of control. But if you have, as it were taken, a vow of poverty, renounce control, and take your delight in things for themselves without reference to yourself, watching, observing, and to some extent knowing, then the question of the rights and wrongs of power and control might become utterly meaningless to you, and the means of power quite valueless. It is a natural pacifist view, which always arises in the mind when there is war. Ultimately, only the victory of the West will allow Bombadil to continue, or even to survive. Nothing would be left for him in the world of Sauron. So how does Tom affect the narrative then? Tom appears in the Fellowship of the Ring after the hobbits enter the Old Forest. He saved Merry and Pippin from Old Man Willow and invited them and Frodo to his house. Tom lives with his enchanting wife Goldberry, who is another mystery, but we do know that she's the River Daughter and is a peaceful spirit. Frodo eventually told Tom about the ring and even handed it over to him. The amazing and puzzling thing is that Tom was completely unaffected by the power of the One Ring. He even put it on and stayed visible. He just laughed and then he made the ring disappear, to Frodo's horror, but then he promptly made it reappear. Tom seems to also live in the unseen world, because later that night, Frodo put the ring on and Tom was able to see him. After 2 days at Tom's house, the hobbits set off again and had their encounter with the Barrow-wights. They were saved by Tom once again, and he was the one who found and gave them the daggers of Western Ness, which were made to kill the Witch King, and that's what Merry did with it. So why were they cut? Peter Jackson said Tom's scenes, while charming, didn't advance the main plot and risked slowing down the story's pacing. But hardcore fans argue that Tom represents something vital, a part of Middle-earth untouched by evil, a reminder of what's truly worth saving. And here's something interesting. One of Tom's songs was reassigned to Treebeard in the film when he rescues Merry and Pippin from the wild trees swallowing them up. It's a nice homage from another lover of nature. Next up, a hobbit with guts, literally and figuratively. Meet Fredegar Bolger, better known as Fatty Bolger. As the name implies, he was a bit of a glutton. Fredegar was a descendant of the Old Took, and his sister, Estella Bolger, would end up marrying Merry. He was part of Frodo's inner circle and one of the conspirators who secretly helped him leave the Shire. But instead of leaving with the others, he volunteered to stay behind in Frodo's house in Crick Hollow, pretending to be him to mislead the Black Riders. That's no small feat. Imagine holding the fort against literal ring wraiths, and when they come looking for Frodo, Fatty raises the alarm in Buckland and the Nazgul flee. Later in the war, he even joined the Hobbit resistance during Sauron's occupation of the Shire, leading a band of rebels. He was even captured and imprisoned in the lockholes until Frodo and the others rescued him. Why was he cut? His role, while brave, was more localized to the Shire and may have seemed unnecessary in a condensed story. But his courage shows that not all heroes carry swords, some just stay home and stand their ground. In the films, the sense of Frodo's broader circle and planning was trimmed down, making the journey seem more spontaneous. Also, the entire conspiracy plot, as well as the scouring of the Shire, was lost, and so was Fredegar. Up next, we have Glorfindel. Glorfindel was tall and straight. His hair was of shining gold, his face fair and young, and fearless and full of joy. His eyes were bright and clean, and his voice like music. On his brow sat wisdom, and in his hand was strength. Glorfindel was one of the most powerful elves in Tolkien's Legendarium, and he was the lord of the House of the Golden Flowers in Gondolin. Glorfindel was born in Valinor and followed the House of Fingolfin during the flight of the Noldor. However, he did not participate in the kinslaying at Aqualande. Once in Beleriand, Glorfindel fought in the Battle of Lammoth, the dagger Aglabad, and the Nirnaeth Arnordiad. Then, when Morgoth attacked Gondolin, he died fighting a Balrog by himself on a mountain pass. He's the reason that Eärendil was able to escape the fall of Gondolin, so he could later plead for peace with the Valar. As a reward for his sacrifice, Glorfindel was sent back from the Halls of Mandos by the Valar. Once back, he played a pivotal role in the Third Age. Glorfindel led elven forces in the Battle of Fornost, and he even told of the prophecy that the Witch King could not die by the hand of man. During the events of the books, while looking for Frodo, 5 ringwraiths fled from him, and he's the one who meets Aragorn and the hobbits on the road to Rivendell. And it's his horse, Asfaloth, that carries Frodo to safety, not Arwen. So why isn't he in the movies? Peter Jackson wanted to give Arwen a stronger, more active role, which is totally valid from a cinematic perspective. But it does mean Glorfindel, this ancient mighty elf lord, gets completely sidelined. Now, let's talk royalty. Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth. He's a man with some elvish blood, as Legolas notes in the book. Here indeed was one who had elven blood in his veins. If Gondor had such men still in these days of fading, great must have been its glory in the days of its rising. Imrahil's lineage goes back to a union between a lord of Dol Amroth and one of the elves of Nimrudel who left Lothlorien but never sailed west. Besides being a fraction elvish, Glorfindel is also a nobleman of Gondor, an uncle to Boromir and Faramir. His sister married Denethor. His daughter also ends up marrying Éomer. Imrahil is the 22nd prince of Dol Amroth, a coastal stronghold. He's a commander of the Knights of Dol Amroth, and he plays a huge role in the defense of Minas Tirith, where he brings 700 men at arms and his Swan Knights to the battle. He personally leads sorties against Sauron's forces, helps care for Faramir, takes charge of the city until Aragorn is king, and rides with Aragorn to the Black Gate. So why was he cut? As with many secondary leaders, Jackson condensed the political and military leadership of Gondor for clarity. Imrahil's role was largely folded into Denethor, Gandalf, and even Éomer. But fans of Gondorian lore still mourn his absence. The imagery of Dol Amroth's Swan Knights riding in shining armor is something we've still never seen on screen. Last, but definitely not least, Halbarad, one of Aragorn's closest friends and leader of the Dunadan Rangers of the North. In the book, The Return of the King, Halbarad brings the Grey Company, 30 rangers, with Elrond's sons Elladan and Elrohir, to join Aragorn on his journey through the Pass of the Dead and to fight at Minas Tirith. He carries Aragorn's banner, crafted by Arwen herself, and he presented it on the Anduin. Tragically, Halbarad dies at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. His presence shows Aragorn's deep roots in the north and emphasizes his role not just as a wanderer, but as the true heir of Isildur with loyal followers. Jackson chose to cut the Dunedain and Halbarad for simplicity, focusing on the main fellowship instead. In the movies, Aragorn's banner just magically appears with no clear origin. It's a small change, but one that loses a lot of emotional weight. Halbarad's absence also reduces the scope of the North's involvement in the war. So there you have it, 5 incredible characters that Peter Jackson left behind in the Lord of the Rings films. There's Tom Bombadil and Goldberry, those timeless mysteries who live outside the reach of evil. Fatty Bolger, the brave hobbit who stayed behind and risked everything to protect Frodo's secret. Glorfindel, the legendary elf lord and Balrog slayer, who once returned from death to walk Middle-earth again. Prince Imrahil, the noble commander of Dol Amroth, who fought fiercely in Gondor's darkest hour. And Halbarad, the loyal ranger who stood by Aragorn through the pass of the dead and paid the ultimate price. And we're just getting started. In part 2, we'll dive into more unforgettable characters who were cut from the films, like Old Man Willow, the sinister tree spirit of the old forest, Baragond and his son, whose actions shaped Faramir's survival and the defense of Minas Tirith, and Yorith, the wise healer from the House of Healing, who reminds us that even everyday people in Middle-earth have their part to play in great events. So what about you? Did we mention your favorite missing character, or is there someone else you're still hoping to see on screen? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this journey through the hidden depths of Tolkien's world, please give this video a like, subscribe to You Shall Not Scroll, and ring that bell so you don't miss part 2. Thanks for watching.